Okay guys, this is the video I thought about doing very early this morning since I was up all night, but I had to wait till later to do this. This is a special NFL Theory video that I thought of earlier. Now before I get to it, I want to let everyone know I got 4 theories, those short ones I mentioned beforehand about like team collapses coming up. I already did the commentaries for them. I just finished making all the slides and pictures for Man 21 for the videos coming up. I just got to put them all together, so hopefully in the next few days they'll start coming up. They're pretty short though. So anyways, this is a special theory that I thought of. Maybe, oh god, can you imagine if I do this later on in the future? But the idea is, what if Tom Brady, instead of being drafted by the Patriots, what if he was drafted still in the 6th round by all the other teams? What I think, would he have any chance to overtake the team to be their starter like how he was with the Patriots? Because remember, he was a 6th round pick in 2000. He was, and going into 2000, he was the Patriots' 4th string. Then he eventually became the backup, and he was still the backup in 2001 to Drew Bledsoe, but then he got injured, and then Brady took over, and we know what happened since. So, this idea is, could Brady have taken over the team's starting quarterback within like 2 to 3 years? And if so, how successful would he be? Would he actually succeed at doing so and thriving, or will he just be irrelevant? Because we gotta be honest, if it wasn't for that, with Bledsoe getting injured, or if another instance, something like that happened in his career, he probably would be irrelevant. We probably would have never known about him. The reason why he became the GOAT is by chance and luck. So we gotta keep that in mind. So this is gonna be it based upon tier lists. So this tier list, there's 6 lists right here. First is Thrive, which is a team that I think he has a very, very strong chance to take over to be their starting quarterback. Good odds are teams that I think he has a good chance, but not as convinced as Thrive. Then there's 3 right here, which is Positive Undecided and Negative Undecided. They're both the same, where I'm not sure if he could or not. Positive is where I think he has a better chance. Negative is where I don't think he has a good chance. But it's still like completely like iffy, not like up in the air. Bad odds are teams that I don't think he could take over, but there's a small chance if he's lucky, maybe he could, and finally won't make it, as teams I don't think he would ever make it if he was on those teams. So let's get into it. I'm already going to put the Patriots up here since we already know how they went. Thrived, of course, as we all saw with his 6 titles. I'm going to do it based upon the conferences in order. So AFC East, North, South, West, and then NFC in that order. And I'm going to do the best team in that conference division to the worst team based upon the 2020 standings. Alright, so let's get into it. So we start off with the Bills. So in 2000, the Bills were still doing their quarterback controversy with Doug Flutie and Rob Johnson. It was the last year of it. After 2001, they let Flutie go. They made Rob Johnson the starter, and the Bills tanked. And then they eventually got the Drew Bledsoe from the Patriots for the trade. So if Brady was drafted by the Bills instead, he would be right in the mix. And the Bills were terrible in 2001, and Rob Johnson, both probably combination of benching or injuries, since I don't know off the top of my head, didn't play the entire season. So Brady very likely could have the opportunity to start games in 2001 and maybe impress enough to take over a job. And since the Patriots don't have Brady's situation, they're not going to trade for Bledsoe. So Brady would have a very good chance to be the starter in 2002 maybe. And his stats compared to Bledsoe's that year were pretty similar, so he really could set himself up as to be the starter. So I think he has very good odds to take over the Bills starter. So then after that is the Dolphins. So of course, 2000 was the year after Dan Marino retired. Now the Dolphins for the next 4 years were playoff contenders. They made the playoffs. They had 4 straight winning seasons. They had up there as like one of the league's best defenses. And then of course, the last 2 years of 2002 to 2003, they had Ricky Williams. So they have like one of the best running backs in the league. But their quarterback play was they've gone through like a few quarterbacks, if I remember correctly, in those 4 years. They weren't bad, but they also weren't like really good either. But I don't honestly think, unless there was like some sort of injury, that Brady could have had a chance to be the Dolphins starter. Because the Dolphins were pretty good. I don't recall them having like a quarterback like controversy or like so bad that players had to be benched, nor any injuries off the top of my head. So I actually am going to put the Dolphins in negative undecided because I'm not convinced off the top of my head from what I know of that he would succeed. So now we get to the Jets. Now this one is really funny because for all of you who didn't know, this almost could have happened in real life because Bill Belichick, for all of you who didn't know, he was the Jets head coach for one day in 2000. He was the successor to Bill Parcells. He resigned after one day and eventually led him to be traded to the Patriots. And also, he was a big reason why they got Brady. So theoretically, if he stayed with the Jets, they might not have gotten Chad Pennington. They might have gotten Brady instead. So think of how close that would be. Now, that is going to also determine how successful he would be taking over. Because if Belichick was with the Jets still, I think it's likely they would take Brady instead of Chad Pennington. And if that's the case, because Chad Pennington, he was the only quarterback in 2000 taken the first round. He did not take over the Jets quarterback starting position until like halfway through 2002. They still had Vinny Testaverde all the way up till from 2000 to middle of 2002. So Brady very likely would have had to wait that long, even if they kept him and didn't have Pennington, because they had Vinny Testaverde, I think Ray Lucas from 2000. I know Testaverde started all the games in 2001, and he did not play good, but he kept the job, so he probably still would. And maybe halfway through the year in 2002, maybe Brady would take over, but I'm not fully sure about that. But if he did, oh boy, I think he would fry, because he played pretty good, just like Chad Pennington did in 2002, and I think he would do really good. I think it would depend on whether or not if maybe they keep Pennington or not, but I think I'll give him good odds to take over the Jets starting job. Alright, so that's all the AFC East. Now it's the AFC North. We'll start with the Steelers. Now the Steelers, they had going into 2000 Cordell Stewart, who was their starting quarterback till early into 2002. Now they ended up in 2002, I believe, picking up Tommy Maddox, who was a former first-round pick in 1992, I believe it was, to the Broncos. He would end up going to the XFL, the original version of XFL in 2001. He would be like one of their best players. The Steelers would pick him up, and then he would take over the starting job for Cordell Stewart until 2004 when Big Ben took over. Unfortunately for Brady, I don't think he'll do good. I'm going to put him in won't make it. Because Cordell Stewart, like I said, he would be the starter till early of 2002. Then Tommy Maddox took over. He would be a starter till the early part of 2004, and then Big Ben would take over. So the odds of Brady making it are just not good in my eyes. Alright, the next is the Ravens. So in the Ravens, in 2000, of course, they had Tony Banks, who played pretty good in 1999, so he was the starter early part of the year, and then he played badly, and then Trent Dilfer took over, and the Ravens went on to win the Super Bowl, remember. And in 2001, they got Elvis Garback from the Chiefs because he was a Pro Bowl quarterback, and they thought the Ravens would have this incredible offense, but it did not work out. The Ravens' offense was worse than it was in 2000, and they went for 3 quarterbacks. So I think Brady has a chance in that stretch to be one of those quarterbacks to play in 2001 and do good enough to maybe convince him to consider having a starter in 2002, because in 2002 all they had was Chris Redman and Jeff Blake, I believe his name was. And neither of them did really good. So Brady has a good chance, I think, to get it. Good odds, I'll give it for him to take over the Ravens job. Now, next up is the Browns. Now, of course, the Browns, remember, they had Tim Couch, they drafted number 1 overall in 1999. He started half of the games in 2000 before he suffered a season-ending injury. So Brady, if he was his backup, he could play in those games. Now, we can't say how he would play since he only threw like 4 passes in 2000, so that's not enough to say he would be good or shit. In 2001, though, Couch played the entire 2001 season, and in 2002, he played all but, I believe, the final 2 games before he suffered a season-ending injury. And then Kelly Holcomb took over, and he played really good. And then in 2003, Holcomb became the starter for early part, and there was a carousel between him and Couch throughout 2003 before they were all gone afterwards. So Brady maybe could show himself good strides in 2000, and then in 2002, maybe they would go to him instead of Helcom. So, it's going to really come down to how he would probably play in the 2000. I'll probably put him in the positive undecided because it kind of is a little iffy. Then, it's the Bengals. Bengals, of course, just like the Browns, drafted Kelly Smith in the first round, 1999. He was their starter somewhat until 2002 because they went through so many quarterbacks a year because the Bengals were so bad in the 90s and the early 2000s. From injuries to benching until they got Palmer and Joe Kitten in 2003, there is a chance that Brady, be it with the benching and the injuries, could take over because I believe, especially the 2001-2002 stats, he did better than any of the quarterbacks the Bengals had at that point. And if he started in 2002, he would do good enough for the Bengals to not even be in a position to get Palmer. They wouldn't have the worst record in the league, most likely. So I'm going to put him in... I'm not sure. Good. I think I'll probably go with positive on the side because the Bengals were so bad that I'm not fully sure. Alright, so now we go to the AFC South. We start off with the Titans, and no, I'm going to put him in won't make it, because remember, they had Steve McNair. He would be the starter for the Titans until 2006. There's no... He was the starter for that long, very good player. Other than injuries, he didn't get benched, I don't think, so... Unless he got like a really bad injury and Brady somehow took over and pressed them, the Titans, I don't think it's going to happen. And I doubt he would make it all the way to 2006 to be their starter, so I'm going to put him in as he wouldn't make it with the Titans. And then the Colts, same thing. Because remember, they got Peyton. He started every single game until he missed all of 2011. Then they took over, they got Andrew Luck. There's no way Brady would be the starter, take over the starter from Peyton over the Colts. Then this is going to be a little bit tougher now choice because it's the Texans. Now the Texans did not exist, remember, in 2000. So they wouldn't be able to draft him. They would have to pick him up from an expansion draft for free agency in 2002. Now, of course, remember, they had David Carr, the number 1 overall pick in 2002. He would be the starter pretty much for 2006 before they would trade to get Matt Schaub. This one, I'm not sure of. I'm going off the lot because if the Patriots had him and he played 2001 and he won the Super Bowl, I don't think they would let him go for expansion draft. The only way the Texans would get him is if Brady never had his chance. And then if he never had his chance, he probably never would have had a chance at all with the Texans unless David Carr got injured, which, of course, was a possibility because he was sacked the most of all the quarterbacks in that 5-year stretch, but I don't think it would be good enough. So I'm going to put him at bad odds he would take over as a Texans starter. Then it's the Jaguars. The Jaguars had Mark Brunell, who was the starter quarterback for pretty much the entire existence of the Jaguars at that point, up till early 2003, when Byron Leftwich, their first-round pick in 2003, took over, and he would be their starter till 2007. So Brady had to stick behind Brunell till 2003, but by that point, they probably would draft Leftwich still, and I don't recall Brunell getting benched or injured in those until he got benched for Leftwich. So I'm going to put him and won't make it with the Jaguars. Wow, the AFC South is not looking good for the Brady to take over. Alright, then the AFC West. We start off with the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, remember, they had, like I mentioned, Elvis Garback. He made the Pro Bowl in 2000, but he did not stay with the Chiefs. He went with the Ravens, like I mentioned earlier. The Chiefs instead got Trent Green, who was the Rams' previous quarterback, who was supposed to be a starter till Kurt Warner took over, and he would be the starter till the end of 2006. So, unfortunately, the odds are not, unfortunately, going to be good with Brady, so I'm going to put him and won't make it with the Chiefs. Unless some miracle happened with Green getting injured, which didn't happen until like near the end of his tenure with the Chiefs, or unless they all of a sudden out of nowhere decide they're just going to go with Brady no matter what in 2001 and just hope for the best. I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. Then the Raiders. And the Raiders I'm going to put in won't make it because remember they had Rich Gannon. He would be the unquestioned starter largely until like early into 2004. So now Brady would have the last 5 seasons waiting. And I don't see that happen. I don't think his contract would last that long. So I'm not going to have him go with the Raiders. Then the Broncos. Now, the Broncos are interesting because it's 2 years after Elway retired. They had Brian Griese, who they drafted in the second round of 1998. He played for a little bit until, I believe, 2003 when he was traded to the Dolphins. And they brought in Jake Plummer, who was the Cardinals starting quarterback for several years. And he was the starting quarterback until halfway through 2006 when they put in Jay Cutler. The odds are not looking good necessarily in Brady's favor, but the Broncos, I'm not sure about their quarterback situation. I don't recall Griese getting benched. He might have gotten injured, so there might be a slight chance. I think I'll probably put him in bad odds. He might have a slight chance to take over as the Broncos star, but not really good. And of course, I did the Broncos incorrect. I was supposed to do the Chargers next. Now, Chargers, remember, they had Ryan Leaf, the second overall pick in 1998. He was gone after 2000, so they brought in LT, Drew Brees, and Doug Flutie was the starter. So, unfortunately for Brady, that's not going to look good for him. He'll probably be third string, as Drew Brees would most likely take over. And then Brees played all of 2002. He played a good chunk of 2003, even though he played bad. And, of course, the Chargers would end up getting Phillip Rivers. Brees would play 2 more years before he would leave. So the odds, unfortunately, for the Chargers are not good. I'm going to put it, though, in bad odds. Not outright, not happen, but it's not good for him to take over. They would have to hope that he played good enough maybe in 2001 instead of having Brees take over, and maybe they can hope that he would do it. That's probably the only way. So that's it for all the AFC teams. Now let's go to the NFC teams, as we'll start off with the football team. Of course, the Redskins at the time. The Redskins at the time had Brad Johnson. He would be on the team until 2001 when he would go to the Buccaneers to help them get their Super Bowl 2 years later. And of course, in 2001, they brought in Tony Banks, who was the Ravens' former QB. And then they really didn't have a QB at all for a long time. They drafted Patrick Ramsey in 2002. Nothing really happened, though, with him. They got Campbell in 2005. So, the odds, I think Brady would have good odds to take over, because after 2001, the Redskins don't really have a quarterback. So I think he would have good odds to take over the quarterback position for the Redskins in 2001. And then we would see what happens afterwards. Then it's the Giants. Now, the Giants had Kerry Collins in 2000. He would be the starter till 2004, where he would be let go, and they would bring in Kurt Warner and Eli. And, of course, Eli would start almost every single game with the Giants until 2019. So, unfortunately, the odds are very bad in Brady's favor. So, I might even go down to won't make it. Because Collins, I believe, started almost every single game from 1999 until 2004 with the Giants. So, the odds are just not good with him to make it. Then the Cowboys. The Cowboys, of course, in 2000 had Troy Aikman in his final year. Now, he missed a whole bunch of his season to injury. So, Brady could have played a couple games in that stretch. Then, of course, when Aikman retired in 2001, there could be a quarterback controversy because Quincy Carter, I believe his name was, the Cowboys got him in the draft of 2001. So, there could be a quarterback controversy between him and Brady. Maybe he would win out. And then, of course, that would be the case till 2003, where they get Romo, but he wouldn't be a factor till 2006. They get Bledsoe in 2005. They get Testaverde in 2004. So, I think Brady would have good odds to be the Cowboys starter. Still, I'm almost would probably say Fry, because I don't see the quarterback competition, but I probably would put the football team over Fry, but not enough yet to say it. Then the Eagles, no. It's going to be no, because they just drafted McNabb, second overall in 1999. He would be the unquestioned starter until 2010, so not happening. Then the Packers, same thing, no. They have Favre. He would start every single game with the Packers till he left in 2000, after 2007. And then they had Aaron Rodgers. There's no way Brady would be the starter with the Packers. Then the Bears. All right, the Bears in 1999, they drafted Cade McNown. They let him go after 2001. So Brady had a good chance in 2001 because they had two quarterbacks they used in 2001. I can't remember off the names off the top of my head. And the Bears went 13-3 that year. And Brady, maybe he could have been in contention to get the starter job. And if he did, oh boy, he would have been better than all the quarterbacks the Bears had. They probably still would lose to the Eagles, though, in the divisional round because Brady did not play good in the divisional round against the Raiders. But if he got them that 13-3 record, I think he would do very good chance with the Bears. Especially, can you imagine later on when they go 11-5, 13-3, 2006, maybe they win the Super Bowl over the Colts in 2006, possibly. So I think Brady would thrive with the Bears if he had that opportunity. But of course, I would probably put down the good odds because, like I said, it has to have some factors going his way. But I think he has very good odds to be close to thriving. Then the Vikings. They drafted Culpepper in 1999. He would be the unquestioned starter until 2005. But he had injury problems, remember. He missed a good chunk of, I believe, 2001, 2002. And of course, he missed almost all of 2005. And he didn't play really good between 2001 and 2002, so maybe there's a chance that Brady could take over? I'm not sure. I'll probably put negative undecided. Not fully sure. It's like iffy. Then the Lions. The Lions had Charlie Batch. He would be their starter until 2001. Now, of course, the Lions were one of the worst teams in 2001. They had a quarterback carousel, so Brady could take over, provide some stability for him, and not make them go 2-14 like they did. And if he did good enough, maybe they wouldn't even bother drafting Joey Harrington. And if that's the case, Brady would be unquestioned starter till God, all the way up to maybe Matthew Stafford. So if he did good enough in that quarterback carousel, I think he can get it. So I'd probably put him in thrive with the Lions because I can't really see how he would not make, because the Lions were so bad in 2001. I can't see how he would not get the starting job at some point and then take over and do good. So I'm putting him in thrive. All right, then the NFC South. Starting off with the Saints. Saints got Jeff Blake, who I mentioned earlier, and they would get Aaron Brooks, who would become the Saints starter till 2006 before they got Breeze. This one is very, very iffy because it honestly would probably depend on if Brady could somehow, this is very unlikely, got the starting job in 2000, because otherwise Aaron Brooks is going to take over by 2001, and he largely played uninjured and unbenched till 2005 when Katrina happened. So I'm probably going to put them in bad odds because Brady would have very little time, because once that happens, if Aaron Brooks takes over, that's never going to happen, especially once Breeze comes to town. So bad odds. Then the Buccaneers. How funny, since he just won them the Super Bowl this year. Well, last year. But we can't look at 2020. We have to look at starting in 2000. And the Buccaneers going into 2000 had Sean King, who was the rookie in 1999. Almost got him to the Super Bowl. 2000, he played pretty good. But in 2001, they would bring in Brad Johnson from the Redskins. And he would be their Buccaneers quarterback until 2005. And of course, he would get them to the Super Bowl and all that. So, believe it or not, despite getting him a Super Bowl in real life, I actually think he wouldn't make it with the Buccaneers if he was taking place in 2000. They got Sean King. They would bring in Brad Johnson. Just wouldn't look good. I mean, be good odds for him. But hey, at least he would probably get a Super Bowl with them still, being a backup in 2002. All right, then the Panthers. The Panthers had Steve Berline in 2000, who was like one of the better quarterbacks in 1999, but he kind of shat the bed in 2000. And the Panthers in 2001 had the worst record in the league. Remember, they went like the Jaguars this last year, won their first game, but then lost their final 15 games. They had no quarterback whatsoever. They didn't really have one in 2002. It wouldn't be till 2003 when they brought in Jake Delhomme. He would be the unquestioned starter till 2010. And of course, the Panthers were so bad in 2001 that I think Brady very likely would get the starting job at some point and help them win more games. So I think he would have a good odds to be a starter for them. Maybe even getting them that Super Bowl they almost had in 2003, since, hey, he would be playing with the Panthers instead of with the Patriots, who probably wouldn't even make the Super Bowl now. Alright, then the Falcons. The Falcons, of course, in 2000 had Chris Chandler. He was their quarterback since 1997. But remember, in 2001, they would trade up to the ~1 spot to get Vic away, meaning draft Vic. And he would be the unquestioned starter until 2007 when he went to his when the dogfighting crap happened. And then, of course, in 2008, they would draft Matt Ryan. Unfortunately, I don't think the odds are in Vic Brady's favor. I'm going to put him in bad odds because he has a chance in 2000 because I don't think Chandler played a lot. 2001, Vic did not play a lot in 2001. Chris Chandler played most of 2001, so maybe Brady would have a chance. And of course, maybe he would play good enough to be the backup. And then if he stayed on the team long enough in 2003, when Vic suffered his season-ending injury, maybe he would play good enough for them to maybe consider keeping him instead of Vic. That's why I'm going to put him in bad odds instead of won't make it. Alright, then it's the Seahawks. Now, Seahawks had Joe Kitna, who I mentioned earlier. He would be on the team till 2001, and then from 2001 to 2003, the Seahawks had this huge quarterback carousel with Trent Dilfer, who I mentioned with the Ravens earlier. They would pick him up after the Ravens released him after they won their Super Bowl, and Matt Hasselbeck, and he wouldn't get the starter job really until 2003. Like, it was a quarterback carousel between them. So, honestly, there's a good chance that Brady could get it. And if he got, oh boy, I think the odds would be very good for him because the Seahawks, for most of the 2000s, were a pretty damn good team. Remember, they made a Super Bowl in 2005. So the odds, I think, are really good if Brady manages to win the starting job in 2001 or 2002. Then it would be the Rams, which I'm already going to put in won't make it. Because remember, 2000, they have Kurt Warner. They have Trent Green. They would get rid of Trent Green in 2001. But Kurt Warner would be the starter till 2003, and then Mark Bulger would take over, and he would be their starter till 2010. So no, Brady would not make it. He would probably get a second title since the Patriots won't win in 2001, but he won't make it. All right, then the Cardinals. All right, the Cardinals. They had, like I mentioned earlier, Jake Plummer. He was a quarterback they drafted in 1997. He would be their starter till 2003. They were really committed to him, even though he didn't play like the best that you would think he would be for a starter before they let him go. And then from 2003 to 2007, largely they would have no real quarterback. They got Warner in 2005, but he wouldn't be used till 2007 really. And they got Matt Leinart in 2006. So I don't really think Brady would be able to get off of Jake Plummer because the Cardinals were so committed to him. He would have to last all the way to 2003, and I don't know if he would be able to do it. But I'm not fully sure, so I think I'll put him in negative undecided. And then finally the 49ers. Okay, the 49ers, they had Jeff Garcia. He was the unquestioned starter for the 49ers till 2004 when he went to the Browns. Then they went with no one really in 2004 before they draft Alex Smith in 2005. The odds, unfortunately, for Brady are very low because Garcia played almost the entire seasons from 2000 to 2003 without injury or benching that I know of. And that would mean he would have to last 4 seasons before possibly taking over. And I don't think he would be on the team by then. So I'm going to put him in won't make it. So that's my tier list of what if Brady was drafted by any other team and had to try and take over the job as a starting quarterback. How successful would he be? I don't think he would make it with the Steelers, Titans, Colts, Jaguars, Chiefs, Raiders, Giants, Eagles, Packers, Buccaneers, Rams, and 49ers. He has bad odds, but still has a very small chance to take over as the Texans, Broncos, Chargers, Saints, and Falcons. It's iffy, but I don't think he has a good chance to take over for the Dolphins, Vikings, and Cardinals. It's undecided, but I think he has a good chance to maybe take over as the Browns and Bengals. I think he has good odds, but maybe a slight chance of not making it with the Jets, Ravens, football team, Cowboys, Bears, Panthers, and Seahawks, and finally 5 teams. I think he definitely would get the starting job easily. Of course, we already have the Patriots on there, no duh, but I would add the Bills and Lions too. So that's my tier list. I'm glad I thought about this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Maybe you got your own ideas in the comments. If so, post what you think. And of course, like I said before, I have 4 theories coming up soon. Keep an eye out for the next few days because they'll hopefully start coming up. So see you guys then for when those videos come up.